The warm glow of crystal chandeliers reflects off polished marble floors as a procession of Bentleys, Rolls-Royces, and Ferraris glides beneath the ornate canopies of the Palazzo Grandeur Casino's VIP entrance. It's Saturday night in Las Vegas, and the city's most exclusive gaming destination is preparing for its annual Spring Gala, an invitation-only event that draws high rollers from across the globe. Doormen in pristine white gloves escort guests from their luxury vehicles, each patron carrying the subtle markers of extraordinary wealth. Designer handbags containing credit instruments worth millions, sealed leather pouches filled with bearer, bonds and briefcases that will soon be converted into betting chips. The scene epitomizes the rarefied world where fortunes are made and lost with the casual indifference of those who possess more money than they can spend. Standing quietly near the entrance, almost invisible against the backdrop of opulence, is a figure whose presence barely registers among the arriving dignitaries. Luis Lou Marquez adjusts his standard-issue burgundy attendant jacket and prepares for what will become the most extraordinary night of his 11-year career. He smiles with practiced professionalism as a prominent real estate mogul approaches, extending a heavy garment bag with the casual confidence of someone accustomed to being served. Lou accepts the bag with the same courteous efficiency he has displayed thousands of times before. His movements are fluid, unremarkable, as he disappears into the soft-carpeted corridor that leads to the casino's cloakroom facilities. To the casual observer, it's a routine interaction between staff and guest, the kind of invisible service that luxury establishments pride themselves on providing. But by morning, $14.2 million would be missing, and Luis Marquez would have vanished along with it. Before we dive deeper into this incredible story of trust, betrayal, and one of the largest insider thefts in Las Vegas history, don't forget to like this documentary, leave a comment sharing your thoughts on casino security, and subscribe to our channel for more shocking true crime stories. If this video is eligible, hit that hype button now to help other true crime fans discover this amazing tale of how the most trusted employee became the biggest threat. Luis Marquez embodied the American dream of steady, honest work rewarded with middle-class stability. At 38, he was a second-generation Las Vegas native who had grown up watching his hometown transform from a regional gambling destination into an international entertainment capital. His father had worked construction, helping build some of the very casinos that now employed his son, while his mother had cleaned hotel rooms until arthritis forced her retirement. Lou's path to the Palazzo Grandeur had been unremarkable but steady. After high school, he had attended community college for 2 years, studying hospitality management before financial pressures forced him to seek full-time employment. The cloakroom position offered decent wages, health insurance, and the kind of stable schedule that allowed him to help support his aging parents. For 11 years, Lou had been the epitome of reliability. He arrived early, stayed late when needed, and never called in sick unless absolutely necessary. His supervisors praised his attention to detail, his ability to remember regular guest preferences, and his discretion in handling sensitive situations that arose in the high-stakes world of VIP gambling. The cloakroom position required a unique combination of skills that Lou had mastered over his decade-plus tenure. He needed to be simultaneously invisible and indispensable, providing seamless service while maintaining the kind of professional anonymity that wealthy clients valued. High rollers wanted their personal effects handled with care and discretion, but they didn't want to remember the faces of the people who provided that service. Lou excelled at this delicate balance. He could recall the specific preferences of hundreds of regular guests, which locker numbers they preferred, how they liked their personal items arranged, the particular way they expected to be greeted, while remaining so professionally invisible that most guests would struggle to pick him out of a lineup. His colleagues appreciated Lou's steady presence and willingness to cover difficult shifts. During major events, when the cloakroom could become overwhelmed with valuable personal items requiring careful handling, Lou was the employee managers could count on to maintain order and protocol. He never complained about overtime, never created workplace drama, and consistently earned the highest performance ratings in his department. But beneath this facade of professional competence, Lou was struggling with mounting financial pressures that would ultimately drive him to betray everything he had built. The crisis had developed gradually, like many middle-class financial disasters. Lou's parents, both in their 70s, had begun experiencing serious health problems that stretched their Medicare coverage beyond the breaking point. His father's diabetes required expensive medications and regular specialist visits, while his mother's arthritis had worsened to the point where she needed daily assistance with basic activities. Lou had stepped in to help, as many adult children do when their parents face medical crises. He had co-signed loans to cover treatment costs, taken over their mortgage payments when his father could no longer work, and gradually assumed responsibility for their day-to-day expenses. The financial burden had crept up slowly, each monthly payment seeming manageable in isolation, but collectively consuming an ever larger portion of his income. The situation had accelerated over the past 18 months. His mother's condition required surgery that cost $35,000, even after insurance. His father had been hospitalized twice for diabetic complications, generating bills that exceeded $20,000. The couple's prescription drug costs alone now exceeded $1,500 monthly. Lou had exhausted his savings, maxed out his credit cards, and taken a second mortgage on his modest home to meet these obligations. But the financial pressure continued to mount, and he found himself facing impossible choices between his parents' medical care and his own financial survival. The psychological toll was as devastating as the economic impact. Lou had always prided himself on his ability to solve problems through hard work and careful planning, but this crisis seemed beyond any reasonable solution. His income as a cloakroom attendant, while steady, was insufficient to support 3 adults' living expenses and mounting medical bills. It was during this period of desperation that Lou began to truly notice the extraordinary wealth that passed through his hands every working day. The Palazzo Grandiore's cloakroom served as a critical intermediary between the casino's high-roller guests and the institution's secure storage systems. Wealthy patrons who arrived with significant cash, bearer bonds, jewelry, or other valuable items needed a trusted system for temporary safekeeping while they enjoyed the casino's amenities. The process relied heavily on personal relationships and institutional trust, rather than the technological security measures that protected the casino's main vault operations. Guests would entrust their valuables to cloakroom attendants like Lou, who would provide secure storage and retrieval services based on established protocols and personal recognition. Lou's position gave him unique insight into the flow of wealth through the casino's VIP operations. He regularly handled briefcases containing hundreds of thousands of dollars in cash, jewelry collections worth millions, and financial instruments that represented more money than most people would see in a lifetime. The sheer scale of wealth passing through the cloakroom had initially impressed him, but over time it had become routine. However, as Lou's financial pressures intensified, he began to pay closer attention to the patterns and vulnerabilities in the system he had helped maintain for over a decade. He noticed that certain high-value deposits were processed during busy periods when normal oversight procedures were stretched thin. He observed that the chain of custody for valuable items involved several handoff points where individual initiative and judgment played crucial roles. Most significantly, Lou realized that his trusted position and long tenure had created a level of institutional confidence that might be exploited during the right circumstances. Supervisors and security personnel had worked with him for years without incident, creating an environment where his actions would be presumed legitimate unless proven otherwise. The idea of theft initially horrified Lou, conflicting with his self-image as an honest, hardworking family man. But as his parents' medical bills continued to mount and his financial options dwindled, the theoretical possibility began to seem like the only practical solution to an impossible situation. Lou's preparation for what would become one of the largest insider thefts in Las Vegas history was characterized by patience and methodical planning rather than desperate improvisation. Over several months, he carefully studied the operational rhythms of the cloakroom and the broader VIP services department, looking for opportunities where extraordinary circumstances might provide cover for extraordinary actions. He began volunteering for high-volume shifts, particularly during special events when the cloakroom would be handling larger than normal quantities of valuable items. These occasions created natural chaos that might mask irregularities in routine procedures. Lou positioned himself as an indispensable employee during these critical periods, someone management could rely on to maintain order when normal systems were stressed. Lou also deepened his relationships with key supervisors and security personnel, becoming the kind of trusted employee whose judgment and discretion were rarely questioned. He demonstrated his competence during smaller crises, building the kind of institutional confidence that would prove crucial during his planned theft. The technical preparation was more subtle than dramatic. Lou studied the paperwork flows that tracked valuable items through the cloakroom system, identifying points where timing discrepancies might be attributed to the natural confusion of busy periods rather than deliberate manipulation. He researched the storage systems used by the casino, understanding how items were logged, tracked, and retrieved. Most importantly, Lou prepared for the aftermath of his crime. He established storage facilities under assumed names, opened accounts that could be accessed without creating obvious digital trails, and researched travel options that would allow him to disappear quickly if necessary. These preparations were made gradually over many months, each action appearing routine and unremarkable in isolation. The Spring Gala provided Lou with the perfect opportunity to execute his plan. The annual event drew the casino's wealthiest patrons for a weekend of high-stakes gambling, exclusive entertainment, and social networking among the international elite. The sheer volume of valuable items requiring cloakroom services would create natural confusion that might mask his theft for the critical hours he needed to escape. The night of March 15th began like many others in Lou's career, except for the extraordinary scale of wealth that would pass through his hands. The guest list included prominent businessmen from Asia, European royalty, professional athletes, and entertainment industry figures whose combined net worth exceeded the GDP of small nations. As the evening progressed, Lou accepted an unprecedented volume of valuable deposits, briefcases containing millions in cash, jewelry collections that belonged to museums, and bearer bonds representing enormous financial instruments were entrusted to his care with the casual confidence that characterized the ultra-wealthy's relationship with money. The theft itself unfolded with the quiet efficiency that had characterized Lou's entire career. During the peak chaos of the gala's opening hours, when multiple VIP arrivals were overwhelming the cloakroom's normal capacity, Lou exploited the trust and timing that his position afforded him. Using his intimate knowledge of the facility's procedures and his relationships with security personnel, Lou diverted a carefully selected subset of high-value deposits away from the normal chain of custody. The process required precise timing, detailed knowledge of the paperwork systems, and the kind of institutional trust that he had built over 11 years of exemplary service. The beauty of Lou's approach was its reliance on routine rather than drama. He didn't need to break into secured areas or overcome sophisticated security systems. Instead, he used his legitimate access and trusted status to manipulate the flow of valuables during a period when normal oversight was stretched to its limits. By the time the gala's entertainment portion began and guests were focused on the evening's premium attractions, Lou had successfully removed $14.2 million worth of cash in bearer bonds from the casino's custody. The theft was camouflaged within the ordinary confusion of an extraordinarily busy night. Lou completed his shift with the same professional demeanor that had defined his career. He processed the remaining deposits, maintained his paperwork, and even stayed overtime to help with the evening's final reconciliation procedures. To anyone observing, he appeared to be the same dedicated employee who had started work 8 hours earlier. But by the time Lou clocked out at dawn, he had already taken the first steps in what would become one of the most extensive manhunts in FBI history. The discovery of the theft came during the Palazzo Grandeur's routine Sunday morning reconciliation, when accounting staff attempted to verify the previous night's deposits against their manifest records. The initial discrepancy seemed like a paperwork error. Wealthy guests often made last-minute changes to their deposit arrangements, creating temporary inconsistencies that were usually resolved within hours. But as auditors dug deeper into the records, the scope of the problem became clear. Multiple high-value deposits that had been logged as received were missing from the secure storage areas where they should have been held. The missing items included briefcases containing cash totaling over $10 million and bearer bonds worth an additional $4.2 million. The casino's management faced an immediate crisis that extended far beyond the financial loss. The missing items belonged to some of the world's most powerful and influential people, guests whose discretion and trust were essential to the casino's reputation and continuing operations. The theft represented not just a monetary loss, but a catastrophic breach of the confidence that underpinned the entire VIP gaming industry. Within hours of the discovery, the Palazzo Grandeur had implemented a complete security lockdown. All employees who had worked the previous evening were detained for questioning. Security footage was reviewed frame by frame, Computer records were analyzed for any irregularities or unauthorized access attempts. The investigation quickly focused on the cloakroom operations, where the missing items had last been definitively located. Liu's activities during the gala were scrutinized in detail, but the initial review showed nothing overtly suspicious. The surveillance footage showed him performing his duties with the same professional competence that had characterized his entire career. However, investigators began to notice subtle anomalies in the timing and documentation of certain transactions. Liu had processed an unusually high volume of deposits during specific time periods, and some of his paperwork showed minor irregularities that might indicate procedural shortcuts taken during the evening's chaos. The breakthrough came when forensic accountants identified a pattern in Liu's badge access records that suggested movements through the facility that weren't entirely consistent with his stated duties. Digital logs showed that he had accessed certain storage areas during periods when his presence wasn't required by normal procedures. But by the time investigators had assembled enough evidence to justify Liu's arrest, he had vanished. The FBI's Financial Crimes Division took over the investigation within 48 hours of the theft's discovery. The Bureau's Las Vegas office had extensive experience with casino-related crimes and immediately recognized the sophisticated nature of Liu's operation. Federal agents began by mapping Liu's personal and professional relationships, looking for accomplices who might have aided his theft or escape. They discovered his parents' medical situation and the mounting financial pressures that provided clear motive for his crime. Bank records revealed the loans and mortgage payments that had pushed him toward financial desperation. The investigation revealed the extent of Liu's preparation. Storage units rented under false names contained evidence of his planning, including research materials about international travel and financial systems. But the facilities contained no trace of the stolen money or Liu himself. Travel records showed that Liu had purchased a one-way ticket to Belize, a country with limited extradition agreements with the United States. But surveillance footage from the airport was inconclusive, and immigration records couldn't definitively place him on the departing flight. The manhunt expanded internationally, with Interpol coordinating searches across multiple continents. But Liu had apparently prepared for this eventuality, creating false identities and escape routes that allowed him to disappear completely. After 3 years of intensive investigation, federal agents acknowledged that Liu may have successfully escaped with his stolen wealth. The case remains open, but leads have grown increasingly cold, and the likelihood of recovery diminishes with each passing month. The theft's impact extended far beyond the immediate financial losses. The Palazzo Grandeur faced lawsuits from affected guests, regulatory fines from gaming authorities, and a crisis of confidence that took years to overcome. Several high-profile clients transferred their business to competing casinos, citing concerns about security and discretion. The incident prompted industry-wide changes in how casinos handle high-value deposits. New protocols require multiple staff members to witness all high-value transactions. Electronic tracking systems monitor valuable items throughout their custody, and enhanced background screening procedures scrutinize employees with access to VIP services. But perhaps the most significant impact was psychological. The theft shattered the assumption that trusted, long-term employees were inherently reliable. Casinos throughout Las Vegas implemented new monitoring systems that treat all staff as potential security risks, fundamentally changing the culture of trust that had previously characterized VIP services. The investigation continues today, though agents privately acknowledge that Liu's head start and careful preparation may have allowed him to achieve permanent escape. Theories about his current whereabouts range from South American hideouts to European cities, where he might have established new identities. Some investigators believe Liu liquidated the stolen assets and invested the proceeds in legitimate businesses that provide ongoing income while masking his criminal past. Others speculate that he fell victim to criminal organizations that helped facilitate his escape but ultimately claimed his stolen wealth for themselves. Liu's former colleagues remain divided in their assessment of his actions. Some express sympathy for the financial pressures that drove him to crime, while others feel betrayed by his violation of the trust they had placed in him over many years of working together. His parents, now in their late 70s and facing ongoing medical challenges, have received no contact from their son since his disappearance. They live with the knowledge that their medical bills may have motivated his crime, while simultaneously hoping for his safe return and dreading the legal consequences he might face. The story of Luis Marquez serves as a cautionary tale about the invisible pressures that can transform ordinary people into desperate criminals. For 11 years, he had been the model employee, reliable, trustworthy, and completely integrated into the casino's operations. His transformation from trusted attendant to international fugitive demonstrates how financial desperation can corrupt even the most seemingly stable individuals. In the rarefied world of high-stakes gambling, where millions of dollars change hands with casual indifference, Lou's crime highlighted the human element that underlies even the most sophisticated security systems. Trust, discretion, and personal relationships remain essential to VIP casino operations. But Lou's betrayal showed how these same qualities can become vulnerabilities when employees face impossible choices. Today, the Palazzo Grandur's cloakroom operates under enhanced security protocols that would have made Lou's theft much more difficult. Multiple employees witness all transactions, electronic systems track every movement of valuable items, and background investigations probe deeper into employees' personal financial situations.